We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Ben Wilson. He does such great work here at the network, taking a look at baseball, both pro and college. He does a great job on the tennis front, football, and so much more. We're going to chat with him because he, much like myself, is from the great state of Wisconsin. A little bit about what we can expect from the NL Central this season, how he bets baseball here in the early part of the season where data is very, very limited, to say the least. And we'll see if we can get a few futures / just game-to-game bets from him as well in the final segment. Good to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter / X timeline at Junit_D1. Keep in mind, letters DM, they mean does not matter. So, per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter / X questions today. Most of the questions I got was what Duke was doing at the end of that college basketball game. So that's always a lot of fun, but we did have a fun day of baseball on Sunday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
We'll go with Sunday Night Baseball first, because for the Seattle Mariners, they got themselves a nice 8-0 win over the Cleveland Guardians. Emerson Hancock, who was a little bit shaky throughout his career with the Seattle Mariners, well, he looked good on this night. 6 scoreless innings out of him on a night where they needed to save the bullpen. Cooper Criswell came through in a big way. 3 scoreless innings, 5 punch-outs out of him. And for the Cleveland Guardians, just 2 total hits, as Emerson Hancock actually left after 6 no-hit innings. He had issued 1 walk and was up to 97 pitches. And for Slade Sassoni, well, he got absolutely lambasted in this game. 6 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings, including a home run allowed to Brendan Donovan. Second home run of the campaign. From there, you did have Colin Olerman be able to live up to his name. 1 unearned run, give it up in 2 innings. Peyton Palate, he was able to come in for 1 2/3 innings. He allows a run as well, but for Seattle, nice win out of them. For the Milwaukee Brewers, things looked like they were on the fritz against the Chicago White Sox, as they get down very early in this game by kind of 7-2, but they put up a 6 spot in the 8th inning to be able to win by kind of 9-7. For the White Sox, Anthony Kay, after spent the last few seasons out there in Japan, pretty solid start here. 2 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings, did allow a home run as Gary Sanchez gets his first home run of the season. Then Christian Yelich off of Sir Anthony Dominguez, he gets his first of the campaign. That comes in that big 8th inning as Jordan leisurely gives up 1 run in 1 1/3 innings. Grant Taylor, a scoreless inning, but Dominguez give up that home run in a 1/3 of an inning. He gives up 2 runs, and for Chris Murphy, comes in for 1 out. He gives up 4 runs, all of which were earned. Jordan Nix, he does get an out of the bullpen squirrels to lower his ERA to 27. Congratulations to him. And for Brandon Sproat, not the debut that he was looking for the Brewers. 7 runs allowed in 3 innings, including a trio of bombs, as you had Colson Montgomery get his first home run of the season. How about home run number 3 for Montaka Murakami? Hopefully I'm saying that correct. He comes over from Japan. He has made an impact right away for this team. And then you had home run number 1 for Everson Piera, but the bullpen was able to hold it down for the Brewers. Grant Anderson was able to give you 2 scoreless innings. Jake Woodford, 2 scoreless innings. Jared Koenig, Trevor McGill, both able to supply a scoreless inning. Nice high-scoring expose out there in Charm City. The Orioles, they get it done by a count of 8-6. And an ejection of Mr. David Shelton because he was arguing balls and strikes with ABS, so he was arguing with the umpire. Good, clean family fun. And for Tyler O'Neill, good, clean family fun off of Bailey Ober. First home run of the campaign. Ober gives up 3 runs in 4 innings, and then Mick Abel in long relief. Well, he did not lend a lot of relief. 5 runs allowed in 3 1/3 innings. Anthony Banda, pair of outside the bullpen squirrels. The Wizard of Oz, Shane Boz, well, not a lot of wizardry here. 4 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings, but Grant Wolfram, a scoreless inning. Yarmil Hidalgo does give up a solo home run as going deep off of him. Royce Lewis, second home run of the campaign. Rico Garcia, Uncle Rico, gives you an out of the bullpen squirrels. Yanir Cano, don't you know he got an out of the bullpen squirrels. Taylor Wells, well, he was not very Wells in this game. 1 run allowed in 2/3 of an inning, but Ryan Elsley, squirrel setting to be able to get the save. Also being able to save the day, the Cincinnati Reds, as they take their series against the Red Sox 3-2 the final. As for the Red Sox, Connolly early, good start here, 5 1/3 innings, allows 1 run, and then from there, Greg Weiser, he gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, and Eugenio Suarez, welcome back to the Reds, first home run of the campaign. Giovanni Morin, 2 squirrel innings from there, and Brett Lauder made some noise, 2 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings to give up a home run to Weiler Abreu, who wild out for a second home run of the campaign. Bullpen from there does their part as Brock and Roll Burke, 1 1/3 inning squirrels. Pierce Johnson, a pair of outside the bullpen squirrels. Tony Santillan, Emilio Pagan. They're both able to lend a scoreless inning as well for the Atlanta Braves. They fall to the Kansas City Royals by a count of 4-1. Not what Grant Holmes was looking for. 3 runs allowed in 5 innings as he gives up a home run to Carter Jensen, his first home run of the campaign. From there, you had some really long relief out of Didier Fuentes. He comes in for 4 innings, gives up 1 run, was not prepared for the big leagues when they called him up. Looked a little bit better here. Seth Lugo, 6 1/3 inning scoreless masterful here. John Schreiber does allow a solo home run to Drake Baldwin. First home run of second home run of the campaign out of him in his inning of work, but man, strong pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Lucas Erceg is able to close the door. He gets a scoreless inning as well for the Walker Texas Rangers. They take their series over the Phillies, 8-3 the final. Jesus Luzardo, he's picking up right where he left off towards the back half of the season last year. 6 runs allowed in 6 innings. That's not a good thing. Andrew McCutcheon, Brandon Nimmo, both get their first home runs of the campaign. Zach Pop, well, he got popped for 2 runs in an inning. Did have Brad Keller and Kyle Bacchus both give you a scoreless inning, but too little, too late. Mackenzie Gore in his debut with the Rangers is a W. 2 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. From there, Cole Winn, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. You did have an out of the bullpen scoreless out of one Mr. Chris Martin, a scoreless inning as well to be able to close the door from Robert Garcia, and 1 2/3 innings out of Carter Baumler as he gives up a run along the way. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they go just 1 of 2 at home in this one, so we'll see how they progress moving forward. And for the Miami Marlins, they start off 3-0 with 3 one-run wins over the Colorado Rockies, 4-3 the final in this one. Max Meyer does give up all 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. No home runs as for the Rockies, just 1 of 12 with men in scoring position, but you did have John King and Michael Peterson, both B Kings, with a scoreless inning apiece. Tyler Phillips, 2 scoreless innings. And for the Rockies, Jose Quintana in his debut, not long for this game, but not terrible. 2 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings. Victor Vodnik, he gives up 2 runs in his inning of work as he gives up a home run to Owen Cassie, acquired from the Cubs in the offseason. Walk-off home run, his first of the campaign. Jimmy Erget before then, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. And Antonio Senzatella, long relief, pretty solid, 2 2/3 innings scoreless, but not enough to be able to get the job done in this one. This was enough for the Blue Jays to get the job done. 5-2, they're able to take down the Athletics. For the A's, Luis Morales gives up all 5 runs in 4 1/3 innings, including a trio of bombs. George Springer, along with Kazuma Okamoto and Jesus Sanchez, all get home runs, their first of the campaign. JT Ginnon Juice in long relief, 3 2/3 innings scoreless, and Eric Lauer, he had some power. 9 punch-outs in 5 1/3 innings, did allow a pair of runs, including a home run to Max Muncy, the other Max Muncy, first home run of the campaign. But from there, Braden Fisher, 5 outside the bullpen scoreless. Tommy Nance, Mason Fluharty, both combined for a scoreless inning, and Jeff Hoffman, scoreless inning to be able to close the door out there. And also being able to close the door, the Washington Nationals, as they take their series against the Cubs. 6-3 the final. Jake Irvin, presentable start. 2 runs allowed in 5 innings. Did give up a pair of home runs as you had Alex Bregman get his first home run as a Cub, and Ian Happ, not Apples, his second home run of the campaign. Bregman a little bit later on against Cionel Perez gets a second home run season. Perez gives up that home run in his inning of work, but BJ Poulin, Gus Varlin, they combine for 2 scoreless innings, and Clayton Beater, first save of the season, 6-pitch scoreless inning to be able to get the job done there. And for the Nationals, pair trail bombs of their own. Joey Weimer off of Shota Imanaga, second home run of the season. Then Hobie Milner gives one up to Keibert Ruiz, his first home run of the campaign. Imanaga, 4 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. Was doing for a little bit of regression last year, so we'll see if that progresses moving forward. Hunter RV, Phil Matone, Daniel Palencia led a scoreless inning, and Milner gives up that home run. 2 runs in total over the course of his inning of work for the Tampa Bay Rays. They walloped the St. Louis Cardinals 11-7 the final as. For Dustin May, it was Mayday, giving up 6 runs over the course of 4 innings, 10 total hits. From there, you had Chris Roycroft give up 2 runs in his inning of work, 3 runs in an inning given up by Matthew Pushert in his MLB debut, so he did not push away that he was looking to. Justin Brule, 2 scoreless innings, George Soriano, scoreless inning, and for the Rays, all 11 runs come on 0 homers, 7 of 16 with men in scoring position. Steven Matz against his old team, a little bit shaky, 4 runs allowed in 5 innings, and did give up a home run in this one to Mr. Jordan Walker, first home run of the campaign, and then you'd have Mason Englert give up a pair of bombs. Pedro Paz and Nolan Gorman get their first home runs of the campaign. Englert, 3 runs in total allowed in his inning work, but you had Kevin Kelly, Garrett Clevenger, Brian Baker, all lend a scoreless inning, and the Rays, they do find a way to avoid the sweep in that one. Also being able to find a way to get the job done, the Pittsburgh Pirates, they avoid a sweep at the hands of the Mets, 4-3 the final as Carmen Beladzinski, he comes in, gives you 4 1/3 innings, gives up 2 runs, and the bullpen from there was good. Jose Urquidy does give up an unearned run in the 10th inning, but you had Yohan Ramirez give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Mason Montgomery, Isaac Manson, Dennis Santana, all in a scoreless inning, and Nolan McLean, after his really good rookie season last year, pretty solid year, 8 punch-outs in 5 innings, did allow a home run though, as Brandon Lau gets allowed for his 3rd home run of the campaign. Oscar Barzobin, Sean Manaea, they combine for 3 scoreless innings. Very interesting to see Manaea coming out of the bullpen. Luke Weaver, scoreless inning, but Richard Dickey Lovelady comes in the 10th inning, gives up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned, as the Pirates, 3 of 14 with men in scoring position, finally cashed in extra innings, so they do find a way to be able to persevere, get the job done in that one. And the Astros, they find a way to get the job done, this by a count of 9-7 over the LA Angels, as Angels offense looks like it's back in full force, but so does the bullpen, as Jack Kachanowicz gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings. Jay Silseth gives you a scoreless inning, and Sam Bachman 2 scoreless innings, but then Drew Pomeranz gives up 3 runs in his inning of work, as for the Astros, 5 of 16 with men in scoring position. This was the debut of the international signing Tatsuya Amai. Not what he was looking for. 4 runs allowed in 2 2/3 innings. Roderi Munoz from there gives up 2 runs over the course of his 2 innings, including a home run to Zach Neto, 2nd home run of the campaign, but you had Stephen Okert, led a scoreless inning. AJ Bluba, 2 scoreless innings. Christian Roa was able to give it out of the bullpen scoreless. Did have a little bit of a sticky situation in the 9th inning. Brian Abreu, he gives up a run in a 1/3 of an inning, but Brian King, he saves today, gets the final 2 outs to be able to preserve the win for the Houston Astros. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in baseball right now, obviously a very small sample size here, just a few days worth of data, but right now, unders are hitting quite well. 24 unders to 21 overs. We've seen 2 pushes along the way as well. And if you're taking a look at money line favorites, they're having a nice start to the season. 30-16 are the favorites on the money line at 65.2%. Now, we have seen 7 favorites not be able to cover the run line so far, so be on the lookout for that. And that's what I'm seeing trend-wise in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Sunday. Coming in next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Ben Wilson right here on the Baseball Betting Show, myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here, lovely Las Vegas, for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man. We've got Ben Wilson aboard. He does such great work here at the network, looking at a little bit of everything. Baseball, football, tennis, you name it, he does it. His play-by-play work, second to none, college basketball, college baseball, indoor football. He's a man of so many different great abilities, and he does a great job being able to decipher all these sports. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter /X as first name Ben, and _, last name Wilson, another _, and the number 1 all together. And Ben, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, absolutely, Greg. What a great time of year. We got a double-barreled action, so to speak, within your own podcast world. So what a nice start it's been to the baseball season, even though, I don't know, for us as Brewer fans, I don't know how much you can read into playing the White Sox, but hey, at least a winning record is better than a losing one, right?
Yeah, they have started out the year undefeated. They are still alive for 162-0 for now, but how do you take a look at this NL Central? Because a lot of people think it's going to run through the Chicago Cubs, and I do think that they're going to be rock solid. You've got plucky teams like the Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates, and in a bizarre world, a lot of people are picking the Cardinals to finish last this season.
It is funny how the tables have turned. And look, I went to University of Missouri, got a lot of friends who still cover the Cardinals. They're close to that market, that organization. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody as just solemnly down on an organization as the folks there in Missouri are on the Cardinals. It's kind of amazing. I think the most excitement there is about around that team is just J.J. Weatherholt. And I covered him in college baseball. He's a great Big 12 player. And it's sort of a weird, it's almost like, it's like Pirates-esque when it's a saving grace of your season is getting excited about prospects. So, like I could see St. Louis being one of those teams that, and I think this, can apply to a lot of different situations. But if we're talking NL Central specifically, I kind of handicap them as the one team most likely to maybe get off to a sort of fugazi, fraudulent start. Look way more impressive than anybody could have predicted. And maybe they're sitting there a few games over 500 or even better come end of April. And then you kind of look to fade them as the data points start to pile up. That's sort of how I look at St. Louis. Because I do think there is some individual talent that is really intriguing in the way they're trying to build young. And if we're being honest, they probably just need to, even from the top down with how they don't really spend money, just clean house, start over and go from there. But I do think there could be spurts where they look better than they actually are over a 162 game sample. And for us, we're always looking for those edges to try to exploit and maybe look more than anything at these overreactions early in the season. And that would be one of them for me that I'm just keeping my eye on. It might not manifest that way, but I could certainly see a path where look up and the Cardinals are, 25-19 and then it all kind of comes crashing down.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that it is going to be interesting to look at all these teams. And with the Brewers, as we know, didn't have a lot of acquisitions in the offseason. We're going to see one of the big ones, Kyle Harrison, actually take the bump on Monday. But how do you take a look at this team with no longer having Freddie Peralta, no longer having Caleb Durbin, but a lot of those key pieces from a season ago, including that great bullpen, all back intact?
Right. And I think the big thing I wanted to see early was how would the lineup adjust to the Jackson Chourio injury, which was one of those blows that, I think everybody, whether you're the most hardcore analytic based bettor or, you do follow some of the karmic juices out there, it's always a horrible gut feeling when you have the cornerstone of your franchise on the eve of opening day go down with an injury and be out significant time. And I know it might only be a month for Chourio, could even be shorter than that, but look, for a lineup that was pretty top heavy, that got career years out of a lot of guys that you wouldn't expect for it to play out that way, that to me is the biggest question mark for Milwaukee is who do you put in that, crucial role at the top? And, what we've seen out like David Hamilton, I think has been that classic fit of, okay, a guy you can throw in there and he's stealing a bag, he's drawing a walk, he's getting on base, sort of the unheralded guy to kind of move the lineup down the order. I think that's what Milwaukee's going to have to rely on. And I think pitching-wise, first start from Jacob Misiorowski outside of the first batter he faced, you could not have come away any more impressed. And I know a lot of people are, I wouldn't say down on him this year. I think it's more of just trying to temper expectations and thinking, look, there's no way this guy's going to throw, even 160, 180 innings just because of how young he is and how many high leverage pitches and innings he threw last year, but certainly willing to believe. I'm one of those guys. You could throw anybody out there in the Brewers rotation and the way they develop pitchers, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. We saw it with Jose Quintana last year and Wade Miley before that, and guys who seemed to be cooked ended up looking really good. How that plays out toward the back half of the rotation and how they fill Quinn Priester's shoes while he's out injured remains to be seen. But I sort of believe kind of how you're talking, Greg. There haven't been a lot of acquisitions, but I also don't really think there's any reason to believe this Brewers team's just going to fall off the cliff in the regular season. They still have a lot of the same bones about them that should make them an upper 80s to around 90 win team.
Yep, absolutely. As we do have Ben Wilson, he does such great work over right here at VSiN, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And certainly I do think that it is interesting to take a look at the early season handicapping as well, because we're trying to figure out all about these teams. There are some teams that we're bullish/bearish on. We just discussed a few out there in the NL Central, but how do you go about trying to find edges here in the early part of the season? Because I know a lot of people default to the 2025 results. Some people will take a look at spring training. Other people will go other different directions overreactions here, but how do you try to be able to find out just what we're going to get here in the early part of the season and place a few bets?
Yeah, I think for me, the first place I start, and I think we all have a list of pitchers that we are really high on. We're expecting big things going into a season. And look, Max Fried up until this year was the poster child of this, coming out and just getting slaughtered on opening day. And all of a sudden, it was like he went from being a guy who couldn't throw a baseball to a legit Cy Young candidate from start one to start two. And it was a pattern every year. It's kind of ironic that this was the year where he actually looked great to start number one. So you might not get a buy low in the market. But in general, you should never, one start, especially the way the calendar has been so early this year with the start of the season. Logan Webb fits that bill for me, especially. He had one bad inning. Even though I know there's some regression metrics that were out there on Matthew Boyd coming into the year, I've watched enough of him, watched enough Cubs baseball, the way he gets run support, that I'm not panicking after, again, one huge blow-up inning after he looked to be cruising the first time up through the order. So those are just two off the top of my head who certainly had rough first outings, and final stat line is going to look bad. But in general, I do think in Boyd's case, given the matchup, in Webb's case, just in general, and he's been one of the more reliable guys, just consistent every fifth day person you can completely trust and rely upon to go deep in a game, even if he gets touched up from time to time. I kind of look at those guys and, next start out and kind of see, all right, where's the market going? Where are some of the out props? How is the strikeout or earned run markets adjusted on them? And sometimes you do get certain books now that a lot more books are hanging numbers across the board on a lot of props that might not be accurate. It might be a bit of an overreaction. So that's like the first place I'm looking for these, at least first couple of week starts. And I really do like to target the pitchers that were poor in their opening starts and kind of go under the hood and see, okay, well, was this just kind of a big inning that did them in, or was there something deeper like a loss of velocity that maybe I want to stay away from? And oftentimes you'll find a lot of those guys that you had trust in going into a season, it was more in the flukish category of why they actually struggled that first time out.
I do think that it's going to be really interesting to see what we get moving forward because, to your point, there's going to be a lot of overreactions here towards the beginning part of the season, and it's going to be very difficult to be able to find your bearings, to say the least. But when you do, it can hit really, really big. And Ben, with regards to the futures market, I know that sometimes you dabble in this a little bit. I know that you don't go like full bore and take like 100 billion of them, but are there a few that you have in pocket right now that you're feeling good about now that we're about 3-4 games into the season?
I don't have any in pocket. I think it's funny. I think we talked about this last year, and I felt like the approach was good, and then it didn't end up working out. But I'm still looking at the Cubs in the NL Central is sort of a buy low team futures-wise, depending on how things start. And I purposely don't like to load up too much, especially because MLB is your single sport that has the longest wait as far as futures payout. And there's also, just by nature of the season, the single most opportunities to jump in and add stuff throughout the campaign. So I'm sitting out for now. I guess the other one is, like if for Paul Skeens, who had a horrible first start, is that something like, do you see another bad outing? Do you see his number dip in the Cy Young market enough where you go, okay, like we've had enough here. He got screwed by O'Neal Cruz twice in the same inning, and they're clearly protecting him. They didn't want him to throw a lot of pitches. Like, is that a situation that is worth diving into? So it's kind of the buy low on, I think it's a partial exercise in following that blueprint you have at the start of the year, and also not getting sucked into teams just because they look awful and assume that they will turn it around. We have examples every year of teams that just never turn it around, and those are obviously the bad bets to make. So that's why I try to just watch a lot first few weeks and try to get my bearings straight, as you talk about, and get an idea of, okay, who do I think is going to be fine long run, and who do I think some of the struggles might actually have some staying power to it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that that's so good to be taking a look at as well, because you don't have to bet all of your futures before the start of the season or after the first week of the season, letting things be able to manifest itself, being able to get a better number. I think that that's so big as well. And we've talked so much about the National League side of things, Ben. How about the American League? Because I do think that we'll both agree that in the National League, if you're taking a look at any sort of futures, it's going to be tough with the LA Dodgers out there. But in the American League, it just feels so much more wide open. And I feel like there's a little bit more of, shall we say, a blank canvas for some of these teams to be able to rise up and have a big season.
I definitely agree with you. I think looking at, I kind of wanted to isolate, like the AL Central in particular to me is probably the most of all those. And I think like the East is a hard handicap, not only because of the talent in that division, but also because of how deep those teams played. You got a lot of guys who had tons of innings pitched and lots of arms being stretched to their limits in the postseason last year. I think Toronto's the one team that a lot of people will first naturally gravitate towards simply because of the workload for a lot of their young arms. But I do think that can still apply, to a team like the Yankees as well. And I think just with the talent dispersal in that particular division, I'm not going to want to jump into that pool immediately, but I do find myself there's so many young guys that the Guardians have this year that I do really like. And just thinking about the way that division is going to shake out, where, you could tell me almost anything outside of the White Sox winning the division, and I would say, I'm really not, and probably the Twins, but I'd say I'm really not that surprised. So it's a division that, to me, I think just if we're just talking bang for your buck, right? Like getting decent plus money odds on teams that have upside with some young players that can really pop. And I'm really interested to seeing what some of these back end of the rotation guys look like for Cleveland here coming up in the next couple of days, because I do think they have some untested, but very, very intriguing pitchers in that mold that, look, they might be a swing and a miss, but they might also hit and be potential, be a rotation that grades out as a top 3 or 4 unit in the AL. I don't think that's completely out of the question at all. So that's the team I'm naturally grabbing toward right now. I want to watch some of their young arms here early, and I'm certainly in a position to look to jump in on them soon.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that it's going to be a really fun season. Ben, I know you're dialed in on it all. You're doing a great job on the college baseball front as well. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yes, sir. At Ben_Wilson_1. College baseball conference tournaments, regionals will be here pretty soon. So do those for ESPN Plus, and all those games are streamed, which is really fun. So yeah, really exciting time, Greg, and always great to jump on with you.
Absolutely. And I know that Ben, he is so hard at work on so many different fronts, doing great play-by-play broadcasts all across the country. And every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So big thanks to Ben for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by our guy, Ben Wilson. Does such great work here at VSiN, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Does a great job as well on the football front. A lot of our live betting coverage here at VSiN. He does amazing work on so much of it, and every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So big thanks to Ben for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at unit_D1. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games in time order, then we go with the Interleague games in time order as well. That's actually a relatively nice, clean, and easy way to go about things. So how about if we get things started? This is 901, 902 on the card. The Nationals are on the road against the Phillies. Taijuan Walker goes for the Phils, and you've got one Mr. Foster Griffin who makes his start for the Washington Nationals. Nationals sizable underdogs here between plus 141 to a plus 152, minus 165 to minus 180. That number on the Phils, the total is 9. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and I did set my total at a 9.2. I do like the over for Taijuan Walker. Better last year, but still not a guy that I'm going to be willing to trust him too much. His deception is just not really there in terms of his swing and miss tough strikeouts on a per 9 innings basis last year, 6.3. He got the home run down from 2 years ago, 2024. He was giving up 2.6 home runs per 9 innings, down to about 1.5 last season, but still, he had a 4.08 ERA, 5.07 fielding independent because he was still giving up 3+ walks per 9 innings, giving up a lot of general contact, so have my concerns there. Meanwhile, for Foster Griffin, a little bit of a young gun guy who he last pitched at the big league level during the 2022 campaign. He actually had to go overseas for a few seasons to be able to get some action as he was with the Yomiuri Giants last season. That's out there in the Nippon Baseball League, and he only gave up 0.1 home runs per 9 innings, albeit he pitched 89 innings for them, so he's not a guy that really had a lot of experience. He was able to get about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, which in the Japanese Baseball League is actually quite solid, but is a little bit of an unproven guy, a little bit of a small sample size, and I just don't know how deep he's going to be able to go in the game, and he's backed up by a Washington Nationals bullpen that last year they were a bottom 5 team in terms of ERA. I think that they're going to be back there once again this season, as there's just really no trusting in these guys. PJ Poulin, along Clayton Beater, these are guys that are relatively rough. Hey, they're off to a 2-1 start this season. I like Brad Lord as a multi-inning guy. I think that he might be able to get a little bit of something as well out of Cole Henry, but Perez is relatively rough, and then you take a look at the lineup, it just has never really come to fruition. They were banking on Dylan Cruz being the bee's knees, and he was not that. Jose Tena has not really found it at the big league level. They should be getting back C.J. Abrams. I know that he was with a little bit of a death in the family. Should be good to go in this game, so you wish him well there. James Wood is able to give you good wood, 30-plus home runs, but how do these guys like Brady House and company really progress as the season goes along? As he did have a home run in that series against the Chicago Cubs, and then on the flip side, you've got a Philadelphia Phillies lineup that has always been one of the best offenses at home. When it comes to away from home, it's a little bit more suspect, and no longer do you have Nick Castellanos out there, but I don't think that that's too big of a downgrade. They're going to be looking at Justin Crawford to have himself a big season, young 22-year-old that they're banking on out there in the outfield. Not sure about the power, but certainly is a guy that can move the line, get on base. Adolis Garcia, they're hoping and praying can just find a way on base. Last few seasons with the Texas Rangers has not been able to do that. Keep in mind, though, in that 2023 season in which they won the World Series, he had 39 bombs in that campaign, and you've got a little bit of a rough start thus far for Bryce Harper, but when he gets it going, he's one of the best hitters in all baseball. When he doesn't get it going, he's very rough. And for the Phillies, this does feel like a better bullpen than it has been in the past. Jose Alvarado had north of a 4 ERA last season, but it was a stop-and-start season for him with the PED suspension, all that stuff. Brad Keller is a guy that had a really nice season last year with the Cubs. Yohan Duran is one of the better closers in all baseball. And I do think that you're going to be able to get some runs up on the board for the Nationals. Do think that they play a little bit of small ball. Taijuan Walker just gives up runs, but I just don't have a lot of faith in Griffin in this bullpen either. So my total 9.2, like the over. With the Phillies, I was willing to lay a small number on the run line right now. You're going to be finding that at about plus 115, plus 120. So you're going to take the plus money on the run line to go along with this over as well. 903, 904, you've got the Pittsburgh Pirates. They walk the plank on the road against the Cincinnati Reds. And yes, we're on to Cincinnati. It's on to Chase Burns getting the start for them. Braxton Ashcraft hopes to not be a load of Ashcraft for the Pittsburgh Pirates. This game is 8. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. For the Reds, are anywhere between minus 122 to a minus 130. And between plus 105 to plus 115. That number on the Buccos. And with the Reds, I did set them at a minus 159. I do like them on the money line. Do have a guy in Braxton Ashcraft that actually had a really nice season last year as he was posting up a 2.71 ERA, albeit it was a relatively small sample size out of him, but he did a nice job just really being able to hold down the fort in general for this team. 9.2 strikeouts, 0.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but only 8 out of those 26 pitching appearances were as a starter. And then for Chase Burns, 4.67 ERA in his small sample size, but he had a 265 fielding dependent in his first year up at the big league level, and I think that there's a lot of upside here. He was getting over 13 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was only giving up about 3 walks per 9 innings as well. It was a little bit wild in his first start or two of the season, but he's a guy that I think really has a lot of upside. He was so amazing over at Wake Forest, and he's backed up by a bullpen that you're neither here nor there on. I really don't trust an Emilio Pagan at the closer spot, but Tony Santillan is a guy that gives you typically a sub 350 ERA. Brock and Roll Burke was actually pretty solid with the Angels last season. Pierce Johnson, he was posting up a sub 350 ERA with the Atlanta Braves last season. And for the Reds, it does look to be a better lineup this year. Brian Hayes, he was rough with the Pirates last season, but he was able to find it when he got traded on over to the Cincinnati Reds. Matt McClain has not really been consistent in terms of moving the line, but he gives you a little bit of pop. Spencer Steer is a guy that has always been able to come up with some big hits for you. Ellie De La Cruz, he's good for 25 plus home runs, bunch of stolen bases, and Sal Stewart looks to be the real deal. Hit a 700 in that series against the Boston Red Sox with a home run. Don't think that that's going to be quite continuing, but Eugenio Suarez, a guy that had 49 home runs last season, he really brings a lot of pop to this team. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates are a little bit better at the plate than they were a season ago, but that's not saying much. They were 30th out of 30 teams with 3.6 runs per game. Love the pickup of Ryan O'Hearn, guy that's able to give you over a 350 on base, functional power. I do think that you're going to be able to get a little bit more moving forward out of Brian Reynolds, who was only hitting like a 240 last season, but these guys like Nick Gonzalez, Jared Trollo, they don't necessarily move the line. They don't necessarily hit for a lot of power. Brandon Lau is a guy that I'm pretty high on. Always had really good power with the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's up to already 3 home runs to begin the season. season. So that's an upgrade, along with Marcell Ozuna, who the last few seasons with the Atlanta Braves was like the lone guy that was able to stay healthy for them. But with the Pirates, do have to have some question marks with the bullpen. Justin Lawrence actually had a sub-1 ERA last season, but that was in a very, very small sample size. Was rough 2 seasons ago. Dennis Santana's a pretty solid reliever as well, but Hunter Barco completely yacked away that game against the Mets a couple days ago. Mason Montgomery is a guy that is really hard to believe in with the Rays last season, posted up a north of 5.5 ERA. And I do think that for the Reds, they just get a better start here out of Chase Burns. So did somebody total it at 8.7. Feel like the 8 is too low, especially out there at Great American Ballpark. So like the over and the Reds on the money line. 905, 906. It's the Metropolitans. They're going to be on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals. Clay Holmes goes for the Metropolitans, and Kyle Leahy goes for the Cardinals. Cardinals do find themselves as an underdog between plus 122 to a plus 130, minus 145 to minus 156. That number on the Mets. Toss game going to be getting that at an 8.5. The over is minus 120. Under is even, and I made a total of an 8.7, so I do like this total to the over. You've got a guy in Kyle Leahy who he's going to be looking to really just be able to lock down a spot here in the rotation because he's been sort of a up and down sort of guy for the St. Louis Cardinals. They brought him mostly out of the bullpen last season. I think that he made one straight start, 3.07 ERA out of the bullpen, so I mean he was rock solid there. Has never been like a strikeout artist. Last year, 8.2 strikeouts and 2.9 walks per 9 innings, but always keeps things out in front of him. They tried to stretch him out during spring training. Was neither here nor there. Was giving up a little bit more hard contact. So again, I feel like it's an experiment that we need to see how that goes. And for Clay Holmes, that was the exact same experiment that the Mets tried on him last season and seemed to work out relatively well. Recognize that Clay Holmes is fielding independent of a 4.11 points here. It's a little bit of regression from the 3.53 ERA from a season ago, but he only gave up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. Swing and miss stuff went down from only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings last season, but I do think that he's going to be able to do a solid job in this rotation. And for the Mets, I do think that this bullpen is quite a bit better as well. It's a landing spot for a lot of former New York Yankees, as a matter of fact, because now you've got Luke Weaver along with Devin Williams in the bullpen. Obviously, Williams was terrible last season. The Mets pretty much ended him, so we'll see if they're able to reborn him. Oscar Brzobin is a really good long guy that's able to give you sub 350 ERA. They did have to use him up yesterday, but you are going to have the likes of Williams and company available in that bullpen. And for the Mets, Luis Robert, who was awful with the White Sox last few seasons, he's found a home already. Hit that big walk-off home run a few days ago, and he's looking like the Luis Robert that we were all hoping for a few seasons ago. Juan Soto last season was able to supply 43 home runs, north of 385 on base. Off to a nice start this season. Francisco Lindor is typically a little bit of a slow starter along with Bo Bichette, but these guys are going to do a nice job moving the line, finding a way on base. I think that the real question mark here is Marcus Semien. What are you going to be able to get out of him moving forward? And then for the St. Louis Cardinals, a really nice start with their offense to begin the season against the Tampa Bay Rays. Their bullpen is looking awful, and their bullpen wasn't bad last year. Like Jojo Romero was posting up a sub 350 ERA. Riley O'Brien was relatively solid, but Ryan Stanek might not be the answer at the closer spot. George Soriano has been an awful long guy as well. And then we've got a guy in J.J. Weatherholt, who already has a walk-off winner to his credit, hit a home run. He's looking like a really good rookie for this team. But what are you going to be able to get out of the outfield? Victor Scott, Jordan Walker have just not been able to hit consistently above a 230. Don't give you a lot of power. Nathan Church, I think that there's some upside with him as a young 25-year-old. He looks relatively rock solid to begin the season. Do like what you're able to get out of Alec Burleson as well. Burleson last year, 18 home runs, about a 345 on base initially. At the catcher spot, I really like what Ivan Herrera is able to bring to the table, but all in all, I do think that the Mets, just a much more complete team. I think that the Cardinals are going to continue to struggle with that bullpen, and I do think that for Kyle Leahy, the experiment as a starter might be a little bit rough. So, semi-line at minus 147. Don't want the run line here with the Mets, but won't lay up to the minus 145 that I'm seeing on the money line, and do like the over. Semi-total at 8.7, 907, 908. You've got the Giants here on the road against the Slam Diego Padres. Walker Buehler is on the bump for the Padres. Landon Roop goes for the Giants. Giants do find themselves as between even money to minus 105. Also seeing a plus 105 out there as well, between minus 112 to minus 120. That number on the pods, 8 to 8.5 is the total. On the 8.5 under is minus 120. The over is even. On the 8, the over is minus 120 and the under is even. And so my total is 7.8. I do like the under. You've got a guy in Walker Buehler who I know it's a rough season from last year. He was posting up north of a 4.50 ERA, but those last few appearances with the Philadelphia Phillies, it felt like he got back to being the Walker Buehler that we all know and love. In 13 2/3 innings, gave up 1 run, 10 hits. He really had things rocking and rolling there. His strikeout stuff, I don't know if it's ever going to be quite back to where it was with the LA Dodgers prior to the surgery that he had in 2023, but I do think that he's going to be able to find it a little bit more. This is now going to be year number 3 coming off of major surgery. Again, I don't know if he ever gets back to it, but I'm willing to buy into it a little bit more, especially when you go up against a Giants lineup that scored 1 run in 3 games against the New York Yankees. Now, the Yankees are very good with their pitching. I think that they're going to be very solid this season, but man, it's not great. Willie Adames last year hit for less than a 300 on base, hit for some home runs, but they were all way too little, way too late. I like Eloy Ramos, 20 plus home runs each of the last 2 seasons, guy that moves the line. Harrison Bader, I think, has some upside. Matt Chapman, he's just very inconsistent. He's either amazing or he's awful in his stretches. There's not a lot of in between. And Luis Rise is able to give you singles, but I have a lot of question marks with this lineup. Rafael Devers seemed to lock in towards back half of the season last year, but again, that was a little bit too little too late when the pressure was completely off. And on the flip side of things for the San Diego Padres, you know what you're going to be able to get out of Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. They give you 30 plus home runs. They do a great job in terms of being able to move the line. Now they figured out the catcher spot with trading for Freddie Fermin towards back half of the season last year. Xander Bogaerts continues to be a waste of money for this team, but Gavin Sheets is a guy with quite a bit of upside. Last season did a nice job giving the team 19 home runs, about a 320 on base. I think that you're going to be able to get a little bit more out of Jackson Merrill after he had a little bit of a down season. I like the pickup of Miguel Andujar along with Nick Castellanos. Castellanos probably wore out his welcome in Philadelphia, but now he's able to be in a little bit more of a timeshare here. And for the Padres, they are numero uno with regards to their bullpen ERA from 8 seasons ago. They're dealing with the injury to Jason Adam. He's a really good reliever, but Mason Miller has become one of the more dominant closers in all baseball. Adrian Morejon is a guy that's able to give you multiple innings in a big way. Now, Jeremiah Estrada had a rough first series of the season, but last year he was posting up a sub-350 ERA. I think that he's going to be able to find it once again, and I do think that Walker Buehler gets back to a little bit more of the guy that we all know and love against the Giants team, that it's a rough with regards to their lineup right now. Landon Roop, he's a guy that last year was able to post up a 3.80 ERA. I think that there's quite a bit of upside with him. He keeps the ball in the yard. Last year gave up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, but has always had command issues. About 3.8 walks per 9 innings 8 seasons ago, 4.6 walks 2 years ago, so he needs to work on that a little bit. And for the Giants last year, they were one of the better bullpens in terms of ERA, but they did trade away the likes of Camilo Duvall and company, so that's a little bit rough. Ryan Walker is not necessarily a guy that I trust in too much. He had north of a 4 ERA last season. Still have some presentable guys, but even a guy like a Joey Lucchesi, I thought that he had some upside. They no longer have him on the roster. They're looking at Ryan Baruchi, and I don't know if I trust in those guys. So with the Padres, set them at a minus 136, like them on the money line, and I'm in on the under. I set my total at a 7.8 with the pitcher-friendly ballpark, 909, 910. You've got the Kansas City Royals playing us to the Minnesota Twins. Simeon Woods Richardson is going for the Twins. Chris with the Gabe Bubich is on the bump for the Royals, and the Royals find themselves anywhere between minus 150 to minus 160 favorites, plus 130 to plus 140. That number on the Twins, 9.5 is a total. Over and under between minus 105 to minus 115. You'll want to note that they moved the fences in at Kauffman Stadium last year, so should be playing a little bit more friendly to hitters. We're going to need to get a little bit of data on that, and I'm still going to default to the under here. I did set my total at an 8.7. The Royals were dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game at home last year. They averaged 3.72 runs per game. Simeon Woods Richardson is about as average of a pitcher as you're going to get. Last year he was posting up an ERA of 4.04, 1.4 home runs, 3.7 walks, and 8.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, 452 fielding independent. He's nothing amazing. He's nothing awful. Now he's backed up by a bullpen then. They traded away all their pieces at the trade deadline last season, and even with that, they were about 25th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Like the pickup of Anthony Banda, I think he'll give you a sub-350 ERA. Taylor Rogers is pretty decent in the bullpen as well, but Justin Topa, hit or miss there. Cody Funderburk last year was posting up about a 3.51 ERA, so he found it a little bit more. 6.49 the season before. I don't know if I can necessarily trust in him. Eric Orze comes over from the Rays, where he was up, down, all around, and when it comes to this Twins lineup, you've got Luke Cashiel, who's been able to do a nice job finding a way to move the line, get on base. He was a nearly 300 hitter in his small sample size last season. And Royce Lewis, pair of home runs to start the season. He's got so much upside, former number 1 overall pick, just has dealt with so many injuries. Byron Buxton, so much upside here. It's just dealt with so many injuries, it's not even funny. So, I mean, if the Twins can stay healthy, they've got matchers, but they don't have a lot of guys that get on base. Like Matt Wallner last year was able to do a nice job being able to supply the team with 22 home runs, but hit a nice hearty 202. Cody Clemens, 15 plus home runs, but he was hitting below a 230. Josh Bell, a guy that really doesn't hit for a lot of average. And then you go on the flip side of the Kansas City Royals. I think that they're going to be a little bit better on offense than they were a season ago. I don't think that they take massive strides forward. Jack Caglione was miserable last season, looking a little bit better this year. I think that's somewhere between A and B with him. You've got a guy, Bobby Witt Jr., who's always so consistent. You can expect 25 plus home runs and hit like a 300 or so. Salvador Perez, he gives you the power. Doesn't really give you as much on base anymore, though. And Vinny Pasquantino last year, 265 average. He was able to supply the team with 32 home runs. you know that he's going to be able to supply some good power, but what are you going to be able to get out of some of these other ancillary pieces like a Carter Jensen? Miguel Garcia has been a little bit up and down throughout his career, but this bullpen of the Royals, really good. They are dealing with a little bit of an injury to Carlos Estevez, probably not going to be available in this game, but Matt Strahm was always a very rock-solid reliever with the Phillies. Lucas Ursich, really good setup guy of the Athletics, and then additionally, John Schreiber is able to give you a sub-3.85 ERA, so I do think that the bullpen of the Royals is much better. And Chris K. Bubich last year gave up a half home run per 9 innings, 9 punch-outs per 9, 255 ERA, 285 fielding dependent. He has formed himself into one of the more underrated pitchers in all baseball, and I'm going to be willing to back him here. I did set my money line price at a minus 167 for looking to lay the run line that's between plus 122 to a plus 130. Personally need at least a plus 125 to take a shot here, and I'm going to be willing to trust in that run line. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the run line of the Royals, and I do like this total to the under as well. 9-11, 9-12 on the card. It is the Walker Texas Rangers on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Chris Bassett has a hook, line, and sinker for the Orioles, and Jack Leiter hopes to lighter it up for the Rangers. Rangers are between plus 104 to plus 110 underdogs, and between minus 119 to a minus 126 is that number on Baltimore. 9 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, and with the Orioles, I did make them a pretty mid-tier favorite here, minus 124, so I'm willing to go up to minus 123 on this money line. For Jack Leiter, he was able to do a nice job in terms of finding it a little bit more last season. He was miserable in his first season, was posting up north of an 8.8 ERA. He wondered if he'd ever be able to figure it out. Last year, it was a big, giant step in the right direction. 3.86 ERA, 4.15 fielding dependent. Needs to cut down on the 4 walks per 9 innings, but 8.8 strikeouts, 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and for Chris Bassett, he was just a very average pitcher last season. He didn't do anything amazing, didn't do anything awful, about a 3.96 ERA, 4.01 fielding dependent, 1.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 8.8 strikeouts per 9, and for the Orioles, I do think that this is a very revamped bullpen. Ryan Elsley, he was just terrible towards the back half of the season last year. Looks like he's back in full force. Now they're dealing with injuries. Obviously, Felix Bautista, I don't know if we see him all season long. Keegan Akin, Andrew Kittredge, they're on the injured list, but Tyler Wells is a former starter that's able to give you multiple innings. Ynier Cano, don't you know this guy a few years ago was a really strong reliever, and then Rico Garcia, Uncle Rico, was really good for this team towards the back half of the season last year. Now the Orioles lineup deal with injuries as well. Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg, 2 of your main infielders, currently out of the fold, so they're relying upon Kobe Bayo. Just hasn't put it together at the big league level. Ryan Mountcastle is probably going to be seeing quite a few at-bats, who doesn't really give you a lot of on-base, but he does a good job in terms of being, for lack of a better term, a singles hitter. Pete Alonso, we all know what we can expect out of him. When he was with the Mets, would just always give you 30-plus home runs, finds a way to be able to give you north of a 330 on base as well, and then for Adley Rutschman, they need him to be a little bit more consistent because it looked like he was going to be the next big thing in baseball last season. He hit for just a 220. Off to a good start thus far this season. Has yet to hit a home run, but he's doing a much better job in terms of being able to move line, get on base, so steps are being taken in the right direction. And then for the Texas Rangers, this team was 22nd in the big leagues in terms of runs per game last year. Interestingly, the Orioles were 24th. I do think that both of these teams are improved, but I think the question is how improved. Jake Berger looks absolutely amazing right now. In the first few games of the season, he's already got a pair of bombs, hitting above a 400. Small sample size, but you like what you're seeing there. Kyle Higashioka was actually really good at the catcher spot for the Rangers last year in terms of getting on base, hitting some bombs, and Corey Seager had a down year last year. I think that he's going to be able to return to form. Keep in mind that when this team was able to win the World Series, he supplied over 30 home runs, was to give you darn near a 390 on base. Don't know if he quite gets back there, but I do expect a big season out of him. Jock Peterson was just miserable last season, and there's only up to go from here. And then Evan Carter was a big part of that World Series run as well, so I do think that you're going to be able to get some runs up on the board, but I think that there's a lot of upside here with Leiter. I think the Chris Bassett pitching in what is a relatively okay ballpark for pitchers because it's not necessarily warm right now. I do think that he's going to be able to put it on lockdown. I think that the Orioles are sneaky good with their bullpen this year. So if I total it at 8.1, I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on the Orioles on the money line. I do like this total of 9 to the under. 9-13, 9-14. It's a Red Sox on the road against the Houston Astros. Lance McCullers Jr. is on the bump for the Astros. Ranger Suarez is on the bump for Boston. Boston is between minus 112 to a minus 120 favorite, and between minus 102 to a plus 105, that number on Houston. 8.5 is the total, over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and with the Red Sox, I did set them at a minus 142. I'm going to be well trusting them on the money line. Ranger Suarez, really nice year last year. He posted up an ERA just a hair above a 3, and he was much better away from home rather than at home. He posted up an ERA about a 3.52 at home, 2.82 when he was away from home. Away from home gave up just 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, and really throughout his career has always been a better road pitcher than a home pitcher. For Ranger Suarez, does a nice job in terms of not beating himself as well. 2.2 walks per 9 innings allowed last season, and The last time he gave up more than 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, you have to go back to the COVID 2020 season, so he doesn't allow a lot of hard contact. And for Lance McCullers Jr., I just don't know if he's ever going to find it again. Missed the entire 2023-24 campaigns. Came back in 2025. 6.51 ERA, 1.6 home runs, and 6.3 walks allowed per 9 innings. That's not good, to say the least. And now has to go up against the Red Sox lineup that last year was the top 6 team in terms of run creation. And now they've got back Roman Anthony, who's able to do such a good job finding a way to be able to get on base. Albeit he's not necessarily a guy that is going to hit for a ton of power, but does find a way to be able to get on base, set up all these other guys with a chance at a 2-run or a 3-run shot. You acquire Wilson Contreras in the offseason. He's good for some power. He does a nice job finding a way on base. Carlos Narvaez is a guy that's able to give you some functional power. Hits relatively solid at the catcher spot. Caleb Durbin, again, not going to give you a ton of power, but he does a nice job taking a nice at-bat. Trevor Story last season was able to come alive for 25 home runs. He was able to about a 265. Not going to get a ton of walks for the Boston Red Sox, but these guys do a nice job in terms of not striking out, making the most out of their at-bats. And for this Red Sox team, they've got such a good bullpen that is going to be in support of Ranger Suarez as well. Garrett Whitlock, Aroldis Chapman, Greg Weiser, all sub-350 ERAs last season. Danny Kalum was really good with the Orioles along with the Rangers last season. So I do think that they're set up for success there. And for the Houston Astros, they are dealing with some major injuries with their bullpen. Aniel De Los Santos, Bennett Sosa, Josh Hader, all dealing with injuries. You got the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu. They both had a sub-350 ERA last season. Steven Okert as well. But outside of that, you just don't have a lot of depth right now. They're looking at AJ Bluebaugh as a long guy. They had to use up a lot of bullpen pieces because Tatsuya Emai had a rough start yesterday. And for the Astros team, you have to wonder if they've just aged a little bit too much. Like, Yordan Alvarez is not necessarily old, but he plays like he's old because he's had so many injuries. He's already got a home run thus far this season, which you do like to see, but you don't really get a lot of walks out of this team. They do a nice job in terms of not striking out. They're always one of the top teams with that regard. Isaac Paredes, this is a really good ballpark for him. In his season last year, even though he dealt with injury and missed like 60 games, he was able to give you 20 home runs, about a 350 on base, and you know what to expect on the likes of Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, but Christian Walker's not been able to find it in this ballpark. Yunier Diaz, he just is allergic to walks. Like, last season, he had a 256 with a 284 on base. Like, he needs to be a little bit more selective up there at the plate. I think that this plays right in the hands of Ranger Suarez and company, and do think that the Red Sox find a way to get the job done. I think that Suarez dominates in the start, so I set my total at 8.4. You're at the 8.5. I like the under, and the Red Sox on the money line made them a minus 142, 915, 916. The Seattle Mariners are playing us the New York Yankees. Ryan Weathers hopes to weather the storm for the Yankees. Luis Castillo is on the bump for Seattle. Seattle minus 110 to minus 115 favorites, between minus 105 to even money. That number on the Yankees. 8 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. And I made the Yankees a minus 107 favorite, so find them right around about even money or so. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line for Ryan Weathers. Just a very small sample size last year. Limited 8 starts. He just really has been robbed by injuries over the last few seasons. 3.99 ERA, but career high 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings was very encouraging to see. Down to about 2.8 walks per 9 innings, and he did give up about 1.6 home runs per 9 innings last season, but now he gets a pitch in Seattle in the month of March where it's very, very, shall we say, pitcher friendly. Now, for this Seattle team, obviously, you've got a lot of matchers, big dumper Cal Raleigh. Even with playing in Seattle, he was able to slug out 60 home runs last season. Brendan Donovan, really good pickup in the offseason. Always was a north of 350 on base guy for the Cardinals. He's already got a pair of home runs to his credit here. Randy Arozarena finds a way on. Julio Rodriguez, traditionally a very, very slow starter, but when he gets it going, but he gets a face-off against him early on in the season, so that's going to be able to help him out. And then for the Seattle Mariners, they were able to do a nice job in terms of resting the bullpen yesterday. Emerson Hancock gave them a good start, much needed because they used up a lot of bullpen pieces towards the early portion of that series. So being able to have Gabe Spire in his sub-3 ERA, Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, one of the best 1-2 punches in all of baseball at your disposal is really good. And for Luis Castillo, he was just so much better at home rather than away from home last season. And did see a big drop-off with regards to his swing and miss stuff. A career low 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, but did hone it in with regards to command, 2.3 walks per 9 innings. Seattle, a just notorious pitcher-friendly ballpark that shows in his 260 home ERA, 470 ERA away from home. Now you've got a Yankees bullpen that it looks very much better than it was last season, even with not having Luke Weaver anymore. Having Devin Williams out the fold, probably an addition by subtraction that clearly was not working out, but 11 scoreless innings from them in that series against the San Francisco Giants. Really like what Tim Hill is able to bring to the table. Sub 350 ERA last season. Camilo Duvall I thought was a good pickup. David Benner, when he's at his full force, I think that he's a top 10 closer in all of baseball. Jake Bird, getting him out of Colorado was really big for him as well. I feel like he's got some upside as well. So I do think that the Yankees find a way to get the job done. See some upside here with Ryan Weathers. Semi-total 7.4, like the under, and with the Yankees, going to be willing to lay the money line, made them the minus 107 favorite. 917, 918. The White Sox, they're on the road. They're facing off against the Miami Marlins as you got Chris Paddock on the bump for the Fish, and Davis Martin goes for the White Sox. White Sox are a underdog here of anywhere between plus 108 to plus 115 and minus 125 to minus 140. That number on the White Sox, 8 to 8.5 is the total. On the 8, the over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. On the 8.5, under is minus 120. The over is even, and when it comes to the White Sox, did set them as an underdog of plus 144. So I'm going to be willing to lay it with Paddock and company, even though Chris Paddock, coming off of just a brutal season last year, he posted up an ERA of a 5.35. He was really unlucky the last few seasons. Last year, it was just bad pitching out of him, just 6.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, but got a guy in Davis Martin who, he's got pretty much the same strikeout per 9 rate, 6.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, 4.10 ERA, 4.66 fielding independent, and I just do not feel good about this White Sox bullpen whatsoever. Now, both of these teams had comparable, shall we say, bullpen ERAs a season ago, and for the White Sox, is there a little bit of upside with some of these guys? Sure, but Sir Anthony Dominguez is your closer, and he got just completely lit up against the Brewers yesterday. Jordan Hicks is a guy that looks pretty washed at this point. Jordan Leisure, a little bit up and down out of him. Sean Newcomb, I don't trust in him. Right now for the White Sox, you're just looking for any sort of pitching whatsoever. They do have a nice lineup though. You've got Montaka Murakami, who's already hit a pair of homers for this White Sox team, and it's looking like that signing is going to be able to pan out for them. Andrew Benintendi is a guy that had 25 plus home runs last season. Does a solid job in terms of moving the line. You've got a little bit of upside, in my opinion, of Everson Piera, who they picked up from the Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays. Not sure if he's going to be a super power hitter or anything like that, but is a guy that's able to give you some nice on base. Colson Montgomery is another one of those guys as well. So for the White Sox, they actually do a nice job being able to hit for a lot of singles. Not necessarily a ton of power. You've got a guy in Edgar Quero as well, who does a nice job in terms of reaching base, and the Miami Marlins, much the same way, especially with currently dealing with Kyle Sowers being on the injured list, but Augusto Ramirez was able to have 20 plus home runs last season. Like what Connor Norby is able to bring to the table, has yet to really be able to put it together at the big league level, but I mean, last season was able to give the team about a 250 average. I think that he builds off of that. He's a young guy who I think is going to be able to have some good upside, and then you have Owen Cassidy, who had some good moments with the Cubs last season, has yet to fully put it together at the big league level along Jacob Marcy, but I think that outfield has a lot of upside, and then Xavier Edwards, he's not a guy that gives you any sort of power whatsoever, but does a good job in terms of reaching base. And then with his bullpen, got the likes of Calvin Fauché, Anthony Bender, who are able to give you a sub 350 ERA. Pete Fairbanks, I think, has a lot of potential as a closer for this team. Spent a bunch of time with the Tampa Bay Rays, and last season supplied a sub 3 ERA, so I think that he's going to be able to do a nice job locking down games. John King, I thought, was a nice true pickup from the Cardinals as well, and I do think that with this being a nice pitcher-friendly ballpark, that both of these pitchers are really able to hone in this spot, so I did set my total at a 7.6. I'm going to be willing to dive in on the under end. Made the Marlins a minus 144 favorite, so like them on the money line. 919, 920 on the guard. It is the Colorado Rockies on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. Cody Ponce, the Ponceation, goes for the Jays, and Tamayuki Sugano is on the bump for Colorado. Colorado is a underdog here between plus 190, seeing as good as a plus 210 out there as well. And for the Jays, you're going to be finding them anywhere between minus 250 to a minus 260. 8.5 is the total. Unders between minus 110 to a minus 120. Overs between even a minus 110. And when it comes to the Rockies, I did set them at a plus 233 for looking to lay a run half with the Jays. Find that anywhere between about a minus 115 to a minus 120, and I'm willing to go up to a minus 120 on this run line, set it at a minus 122. Now, you should note that with the Rockies, while they did start 0-3, they actually covered the run line in all their games against the Miami Marlins, so that was relatively good for them. I just don't have any faith here in Tamayuki Sugano whatsoever. In his season with the Baltimore Orioles last year, coming on over from overseas, he gave up a bunch of hard contact. 1.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He's lucky his 4.64 ERA wasn't higher. 5.36 fielding dependent. The command is good, only about 2.1 walks per 9 innings, but no deception whatsoever. 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. And then for Cody Ponce, he was a bit of a failure at the big league level. He was pitching for the Pirates way back in the day. He goes on over to the KBO, absolutely dominates, as he was pitching for Hanwha last season, who used to be just absolutely terrible in the KBO. Went 17-1 with a 2.04 ERA in the KBO level. He was not giving up any sort of hard contact whatsoever. 0.5 home runs per 9 innings and 12.5 strikeouts per 9 innings in the KBO, where, I mean, it's like a cardinal sin to be striking out. That is just absolutely massive. So I do think that he's going to be able to come back to the States, really be able to find it, and he's backed up by a Blue Jays bullpen that probably is going to need a little bit of rest. Wasn't necessarily the world's greatest first series for them against the Athletics, but still, I do think that there's some upside with this bullpen. Jeff Hoffman looked really good in the postseason last year. I do have to recognize the fact that he was bad during the regular season last year, but like Louis Varland, sub-3 ERA last season, Brandon Little, Braden Fisher, these guys gave you a sub-350 ERA last season as well, and then I think that this is a Blue Jays team that's going to be ripping the cover off the ball of Vlad Guerrero Jr. Just 23 home runs during the regular season last year. I think that he's going to be able to build off of that great postseason from a season ago. Kazuma Okamoto already has a home run to his credit. He's looking like a good signing coming on over from Japan. Dalton Varsho, he was getting a home run every about 12 or so bats last season. Addison Barger just came up with big hit after big hit in the postseason last year. George Springer had himself a career year last year. He was able to supply the team with a really good on base at right around about a 399, posted up 30 plus home runs. So I absolutely love this lineup. But then for the Colorado Rockies, they averaged 2.7 runs per game a season ago away from home, because at home, obviously, they have the elevation on their side. That helps out the offense quite a bit, but when these guys leave home, they're just incapable of hitting, other than Hunter Goodman. Goodman was able to give you 25 plus home runs. He was pretty consistent away from home, but it looks like it's going to be much of the same this season. You do have a guy in Jordan Beck, who I think has a little bit of upside, a nice first series against the Miami Marlins. And last year, 317 on base, 16 home runs. He was functional away from home, so that helps out. Jake McCarthy is a guy that they pick up from the Arizona Diamondbacks, but he's been all over the place throughout his career as well. You've got a guy in Brenton Doyle that just has not been able to hit when he's been away from home. Last year, 276 on base, so they're going to need he and so many of the young guys like a Kyle Karros to be able to pick it up, as they're really banking on these guys to be able to form just a nice lineup in general. And for the Colorado Rockies, one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball last year. You do have a few okay pieces, like Victor Vodnik was able to supply a sub-4 ERA. Zach Ognos, I actually think, has a little bit of upside, along with Jaden Hill in the bullpen. And Jimmy Harrigan, he was actually pretty good for this team. I do think that the Rockies are going to be able to rise up a little bit more with the bullpen, but I just have absolutely no faith here in Sugano whatsoever with this total of 8.5. I do think that Ponce is probably going to give up a little bit here. I think that he's going to have a little bit of an adjustment back to the big league level, but I think that the Blue Jays actually mash on Sugano. So like the run line here of the Blue Jays, and I'm going to take the over. Semi-total at 8.7, 921, 922. It's the Athletics on the road against the Braves, as Bryce Elder hopes to not look elderly for the Braves, and Jacob Lopez is on the bump for the Athletics. The Athletics are in between plus 114 to plus 125 underdogs, and between minus 135 to minus 143 is that number on the Bravos. 9 to 9.5 is the total. On the 9.5, under is minus 120, the over is even. On the 9, the over is minus 120, and the under is even. And when it comes to this one, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Athletics. Pretty much a plus 120 or better was my buy point on the money line. Jacob Lopez was able to put it together towards the back half of the season last year, one of the few guys that was able to pitch in Sacramento as well. And while the ERA was a 4.06 last season, he was able to get 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, doomed a little bit by the deep ball, did give up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and a little bit of it was a shaky start to the season. After he got settled in, he was able to do a much better job. One of the few guys that pitched much worse away from home rather than at home. He did have his ERA go up to a 5.40 in his games played away from home, so that is something to be a little bit cautious of. But for the Atlanta Braves, even though I do think that there's a lot of upside with regards to this lineup, they are a bunch that they just have dealt with a lot of injuries over the last few seasons, and I do have to question whether or not they ever get back to that 2023 form when they were leading the league in terms of scoring. You had that year Matt Olson supplied 54 home runs. He has put up 29 home runs at each of the last 2 years since. Drake Baldwin is a guy that does a great job at the catcher spot. Austin Riley is pretty consistent as well. And then Ronald Acuna Jr. is big. Had a really rough first series, but that said, you know that he's going to be back in full form when he was out there last season. Had home runs per at-bat rate of about 1 home run every 15 at-bats. Gave the team a 417 on base, so he's going to be able to help out as well. And for the Braves, this is a bullpen that I think is pretty rock solid. Dylan Lee, Aaron Bummer are a pair of guys who are able to give you a sub-385 ERA. Robert Suarez was a good closer with the San Diego Padres. They need Horacio Iglesias to get back to being the guy that we all know and love. He was terrible last season, but Tyler Kinley, since being acquired from the Rockies, a sub-250 ERA in a Braves uniform. Now for the Athletics, one big thing for the team is that their bullpen is not great. Elvis Alvarado, he gives you a north of 4 ERA in the building. JT Ginn and Juice, I don't think is the answer for this team. Hogan Harris, Justin Sterner, these are not really trustworthy guys. Sterner did have a sub-4 ERA last season, but these guys do not provide a lot of excitement, and Mike Leiter Jr. is just absolutely terrible. That said, Nick Kurtz, 30-plus home runs, nearly a 400 base last season. Shea Langeliers, banged for over 30 home runs at a 270 average. Tyler Soderstrom, 20-plus bombs, is able to do a good job moving the line. Jacob Wilson at above a 300 last season. Now, the other Max Muncy, Jeff McNeil, you're going to need these guys in the infield to not be amazing, but just give you functional at-bats, and I do think that they're going to be able to do so. Brent Rooker's a guy that's capable of 30-plus bombs at a 350 on base. I think that they're going to do a nice job in terms of getting to Bryce Elder here. Elder, he had that all-star appearance like 3 or so years ago, and he was one of the luckiest pitchers I had ever seen in that season, and it has toilet bowled ever since then. 5.30 ERA last season, 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3 walks per 9, gives up about 1.5 bombs per 9 innings. Looked a little bit better in his last few starts of the season, but I just don't think that he's really capable of giving you great starts. So between a 9 to a 9.5, I set my total 9.1. Do like the 9 over, and the Athletics on the money line, set them at a plus 117, 923, 924. It is the Angels. They're on the road against the Chicago Cubs. The debut of Edward Cabrera for the Cubs, and you've got Ryan Johnson on the bump for the Angels. And the Angels do find themselves as an underdog between plus 155 to a plus 165, minus 180 to minus 195. That number on the Cubs, and total is 9.5. The under is minus 120, and the over is even, and the wind should be blowing out a little bit less than yesterday, but I'm still seeing like 8 to 10 miles per hour, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. I set my total at a 10.1, and I do like the Cubs here on the run line. I was seeing that at a plus 115. I was willing to go more like a minus 115. Edward Cabrera had himself a nice season last year with the Miami Marlins, as he always had an issue with walks. His swing and miss stuff has always been there. 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but in his first 4 seasons at the big league level, over 4 walks per 9 innings, down to 3.1 last season, gave up just 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, 3.53 ERA, so it appears as though he has finally found it. And for Ryan Johnson, he got some appearances out of the bullpen last year for the Angels, and they did not go well. 7.36 ERA, 5.52 field independent. He's capable of giving you some swing and miss, but he had 2.5 home runs and 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, and the Angels' bullpen still sucks. They tried to revamp it, and I thought that it was going to be a little bit better this season because you picked up a guy in Brent Suter. I mean, he's not amazing, but he's a veteran arm. Joey Lucchesi, he's always been pretty solid, but Drew Pomeranz just got completely destroyed in that series against the Astros. Jordan Romano had north of an 80 ERA last season. He's just terrible. Ryan Zefrian is not the answer as a setup man, and for the Angels, all or nothing team. Last year, bottom 5 team in the big leagues with regards to on-base percentage, top 5 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Even Mike Trout was only hitting for about a 240 last season. Still, the on-base was relatively solid. He'll give you some good power, and Joe Adell set fire to the rain with hitting over 30 home runs last season, but once at a 320 on base as well. Ori Soler just looks completely washed at this point. Nolan Schunel does an okay job in terms of moving the line, and I like Zach Neto as well. He's one of the few guys that'll take a walk for the team, like Logan Hoppe. Have to feel happy about the fact that he had 19 home runs last season. Not so happy about the fact that he had 260 on base. So, I mean, that was all sorts of rough, and then on the flip side of things, you've got yourself a bunch in the Cubs that they do lose Kyle Tucker in the offseason, but they do a nice job replacing it with Alex Bregman, who's already got a home run to his credit. They're dealing with the injury to Seiya Suzuki, but have a lot of depth with someone like a Matt Shaw who's able to step in. Moises Ballesteros, I think, has a lot of upside. They've got Michael Conforto on the roster, so lots of interchangeable pieces, and they're able to do a lot of platooning with like Carson Kelly and Miguel Amaya at the catcher spot. Absolutely love that. Michael Busch is a guy that's able to give you 25 plus home runs, give you over a 340 on base. Nico Horner, he does a good job in terms of moving the line. Not necessarily a ton of power, but I mean, Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, they're able to fill in with that. And if you can get Pete Crow Armstrong back to where he was in the first half of the season last year, massive for this team. The Cubs do lose a few pieces like Brad Keller in the offseason from that bullpen, but Caleb Theobar had himself a career year last year. Phil Matone, I think, is going to be able to find it a little bit more. He's been shaky over the last few seasons, but the Cubs have actually done a really good job in terms of rehabilitating careers in that bullpen. They did a nice job last year. I have a little bit of faith in them once again this year. Again, with the wind blowing out, though, I think that it's going to be a very nice hitter's night. So, semi-total 10.1, like the over, and the Cubs here on the run line made them a minus 118 on that run line, 925, 926. The Rays are on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers. Kyle Harrison is on the bump for the Crew. Nick Martinez is on the bump for the Rays. The Rays do find themselves as a underdog here of anywhere between plus 119 to a plus 135, anywhere between minus 140 to minus 152. The number on the Crew, 8 is the total. Over is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The over is between even and minus 110, and I like the over. Semi-total at an 8.7. Kyle Harrison had a relatively solid year last year, considering that he had bounced around from a pair of different teams. He was with the Giants along with the Boston Red Sox. Didn't get a lot of run with the Red Sox, but still posted up about a 4.04 ERA with a 3.72 fielding dependent, has great swing and miss stuff. 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, needs to learn to control it, as he did have 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and that's like the opposite of Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez, really good with command, only about 2.3 walks per 9 innings last year, but a 4.45 ERA because he only posted up about 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, and have a Rays bullpen that, uncharacteristically, they are currently terrible right now. For the Tampa Bay Rays, just completely destroyed in the bullpen in that series against the St. Louis Cardinals, north of a 9 ERA. Griffin Jax is just getting jacked up. Cole Sulzer, he was okay with the Orioles. It looks like this might not be a great fit here with the Rays. Ian Seymour should be starting. He should not be coming out of the bullpen right now. I don't know what they're doing there. And then for the Rays, functional offense, they're a team that was 14th in the league in terms of runs per game last season. Now, they are dealing with the injury to Gavin Lux and Taylor Walls. Walls is just a complete liability at the plate, though, but Yandy Diaz, over 350 on base, 20-plus home runs last season. Chandler Simpson, he gives you no power, but does a great job finding way on base. Swipes some bags. Junior Caminero, 40-plus home runs. Jonathan Aranda, north of 350 on base. He gives you some good power. So I like those pieces for this Rays lineup. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they didn't have for a lot of power last year. Bottom 6 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Top 5 team in terms of runs per game. They are Dale Jackson Trio and Andrew Vaughn currently being on the injured list, but William Contreras gives you over 325 on base with functional power. Price Terang, he does a good job along Sal Frelick in terms of swiping some bags. Joey Ortiz has been able to come along for the ride with his bat. You've got a guy in Christian Yelich who's capable of giving you 25-plus home runs. We'll never probably see the MVP form of him, but still he's rock solid. Not really a big believer in Luis Renifo, but I'm a big believer in this Brewers bullpen as well. Jared Koenig, Aaron Ashby, Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, all these guys that had a sub 350 ERA. Grant Anderson is able to give you multiple good innings as well. I do think that the Rays are going to be able to get some runs up on the board, but with the Rays having a pitcher contact guy in Martinez coupled with a rough bullpen, I do think they get runs up on the board. So I told at an 8.7, like the over, and with the Brewers, set them at a minus 152. Don't want the run line, but willing to take that money line to go along with the over. 927, 928. It's the Detroit Tigers on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Michael Soroka is on the bump for Arizona. Justin Verlander goes for Detroit. Detroit is a very slim underdog, anywhere between even money to minus 108, between minus 105 to minus 115. Then around Arizona. 9 is the total. Over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. For the Tigers, I set them at a slim minus 108. I like them on the money line. I think that Justin Verlander is going to be reinvigorated, pitching for the Detroit Tigers once again, where he began his career for oh so long. And last season with the Giants, it certainly went down the tubes with him towards the back half of the season. He gave up only about 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, but keep in mind that he was in one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all baseball, so take that with a grain of salt. But even at his advanced age of 42 last year, was getting about 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. He doesn't walk a ton of guys, so I think that that's going to play well here. And for Michael Soroka, he was able to find some good swing and miss stuff, but was dealing with injuries towards the back half of the season last year, and he has throughout his entire career. And for Soroka, 4.52 ERA, 4.23 fielding independent, just really gave up a lot of hard contact, about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, up to about 9.5 strikeouts per 9, but he does have a little bit of a command issue with about 3 walks per 9 innings, and it's just really hard to trust in this Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen as they pick up Paul Sewald once again. He was not amazing with the Diamondbacks the first time around. I don't think that he's going to be amazing this time around. AJ Puck is still on the injured list. Juan Murillo is absolutely terrible. Jonathan Loaizaga, it appears as though he just is never going to be able to get back to that peak form once again. Kevin Ginkel is a guy that I don't trust in, and then when it comes to the lineup, you can trust in the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, good for 350 on base and 25-plus home runs. Carlos Santana, he's not necessarily a guy that's going to hit for average, but he still has some good power. I like Jordan Lawler as a young guy to be able to help out this outfield. Alec Thomas, not amazing power, but functional power, gets on base. And Corbin Carroll, he dealt with a few injuries like a year or two ago. Appears as though he's a guy that can give you 30-plus home runs, hit for about a 250 as well. And then Pavin Smith, he does a good job in terms of moving the line as well. And then on the flip side, you've got a Detroit Tigers team that I really think that this bullpen gets back to where they were 2 seasons ago when they had the bullpen madness, and that led to them making the postseason. Guys like Kyle Finnegan, Brant Herter, Will Vest, they're all able to give you multiple innings. Now they've got Kenley Jansen at the closer spot. That is not good to say the least, but I think even with that, they're going to be able to overcome that. Kevin McGonigal at the third base spot. Looks like he's going to be a nice functional hitter with some pretty solid power. Gary Carpenter was last year able to give the team 20-plus bombs. Doesn't necessarily take a ton of walks, but does a good job in terms of finding way on base. Spencer Torkelson, 30-plus bombs last season. Gleyber Torres, 15-plus bombs. Did a great job moving the line. Just lots of balance in general with this team. Riley Green, who's able to give you 30-plus home runs, even when you need Matt Fearling in a little bit of a platoon spot. He does a good job in terms of finding way on. I think that Verlander finds a way to be able to get the job done here. And I do think that Michael Soroka gives you a relatively good start as well. I think that the Tigers bullpen helps you keep it under, so my total at 88.6. So like the under and the Detroit Tigers here on the money line. Wrap things up with 929, 930. The Guardians are on the road against the LA Dodgers. Hiroki Sasaki is on the bump for the Dodgers. Parker Messick is on the bump for Cleveland. Cleveland is a underdog between plus 154 to a plus 175, between minus 184 to minus 207. That number on the Dodgers. 8.5 to 9 is the total on the 9. Under is minus 120. The over is even, and on the 8.5. Over is minus 115 to minus 120. Under is between even and minus 105. Feel like the run line of the Dodgers. Find that as good as a plus 112, as bad as even money. I was willing to take pretty much anything of plus money. I set my line at a plus 104, so gonna ride with the Dodgers on the run line. Keep in mind that the Cleveland Guardians coming off of Sunday Night Baseball, which ironically enough is no longer on ESPN, and for Messick, he was really good in his small sample size last season. Just 7 starts, but he was posting up 8.5 strikeouts and 1.4 walks per 9 innings. The Guardians just do a great job in terms of developing pitchers. He was really good over at Florida State, but now you have to go up against the Death Star that is known as the LA Dodgers. You know what you're going to be able to get out of this lineup. Shohei Ohtani, who gives you 40 plus home runs and north of 375 on base. They are dealing with the injury to Tommy Edman, but Alex Freeland fills in. He gets a home run in that series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Freddie Freeman, good for 30-plus bombs, finding way on base. Mookie Betts wasn't even at his best towards back out of the season last year. He's now fully healthy once again. Kyle Tucker, big pickup in the offseason. He'll give you a 350 on base with 25-plus home runs. Like, you just go down the line, and there's no easy outs with this lineup. And then additionally for the Dodgers, the bullpen appears to be back. You sign Edwin Diaz in the offseason, Alex Vesia, Jack Dreyer. These guys give you a sub-325 ERA. Blake Tryon was awful towards back half of the season. I think that he finds it once again. Tanner Scott, he 2 seasons ago was one of the better relievers in all of baseball. I think that he finds that form once again. And then when it comes to Hiroki Sasaki, this is a role that I say you've got coming out of the bullpen. He was absolutely amazing in his few starts last season. You could tell that he was a little bit uncomfortable. I think that he looks a little bit better here. I don't know if he gets back to that form that he had in Japan, where he was just like one of the most dominant pitchers that they had ever seen. But still, I do think that what he was able to do in the postseason is going to be able to translate here. He's got good swing and miss stuff. When it came to the regular season last year, in his 10 total appearances, had 5.4 walks per 9 innings, so he might knock himself out of the start early, but the likes of Jack Dreyer and company, I think, can pick it up. And because he might knock himself out of the start early, I do think that you're going to be able to get some runs up on the board, so I do like the over. And additionally, for the Cleveland Guardians, while they got held down yesterday, Chase Slaughter is already up to 4 home runs for this team, and it does look like an offense that is going to be much more fearsome than they have been in the past, as you've right now got a guy that I really like in Steven Kwan at the top of the lineup, who does a good job in terms of moving the line. I don't trust in some of these guys like David Fry, Kyle Manzardo, even though they give you power. They don't necessarily hit for the world's greatest average. David Schneemann, and that's not great to say the least, but you know what you're going to be able to get out of Jose Ramirez as well. And then for the Guardians, top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. They're dealing with the injury to Hunter Gaddis, but you've got a lot of other guys in that bullpen that are able to step it up. Kate Smith had a little bit of a rough go of it on Saturday, but Sean Armstrong, Eric Zabrowski, good for a sub-375 ERA. Tim Aaron is pretty functional as well, so I do like the over in this spot. Just think that the Dodgers slug their way to victory, so like the Dodgers run line and the over. That'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Ben Wilson, who does great work here at VSiN, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like sharing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. You have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, do have 1 or 2 ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GNet_D1. Keep in mind, there's the they mean does not matter, so per usual, please just send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire into whatever you'd like to on this podcast, that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every game every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.